The words hung in the air like smoke. "Sign the house over, or I'll put you in a psych ward." I didn't flinch. I smiled. Because 3 seconds earlier, I'd pressed record. Ian stood where his father used to sit every evening with the newspaper, right there in that worn armchair Peter had refused to replace for 20 years. The leather was cracked along the arms from where Peter's hands rested while he read. Now Ian's shadow fell across it like he was already measuring the room for staging photos. My son, 6 feet tall in a suit that cost more than our first car, hair styled like a man running for office, voice smooth as butter until it wasn't. "Mom, I'm trying to help you." He took a step closer, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something sharper. Impatience, maybe. Greed dressed up as concern. "You can't manage this place anymore. Dad's gone. You're alone. You forget things." "I forget things," I repeated, keeping my voice level. My phone sat in my housecoat pocket, record button activated, capturing every word. A trick I'd learned from 47 years as an archivist. Document everything, especially the moments people think no one's watching. "Last week you called me twice about the same appointment." His tone shifted, rehearsed sympathy bleeding through. "You left the stove on. Mrs. Gomez next door told me she's worried." I had called him twice, because he hadn't answered the first time. The stove incident happened once in 47 years, and I'd caught it myself within 2 minutes. And Mrs. Gomez? She'd never said a word to me about worry, only about how pretty the garden looked this spring. But Ian was building a story. I could see the architecture of it in how carefully he chose each example. "I found a wonderful facility in Charlotte," he continued, pulling a glossy brochure from his jacket. "Near me, private room, full care, activities. You'd love it." "And the house?" I asked quietly. His pause lasted half a second too long. "I'll handle it, get it sold, set up a trust for your care. You won't have to worry about anything." There it was. The house Peter and I bought when the neighborhood was called transitional, and nobody wanted brick colonials in Decatur. The house we'd painted together, room by room. The house where we'd raised Ian in a community that became worth millions while we weren't paying attention. "I'm not signing anything, Ian." His face changed. The mask cracked just enough for me to see what lived underneath. "Mom." His voice dropped low, almost a whisper, but it landed like a threat. "Sign the house over or I'll file papers. Conservatorship. Cognitive decline. I've already talked to a doctor who'll back me up." My heart hammered, but I kept my hands steady. Years of handling fragile documents had taught me that. "Go ahead and try, sweetheart." I smiled then, soft and sad, the way you smile at someone who's shown you exactly who they've become. "You'll find I've kept very good records." Something flickered in his eyes. Confusion, maybe concern, but he was too sure of himself to see the warning. Ian grabbed his keys from the side table, the one Peter had built in our garage 30 years ago. "I'm trying to protect you from yourself. When you're standing in front of a judge explaining why you can't remember your own address, you'll thank me." I'd never forgotten my address, not once. He walked out without looking back. The front door closed with a soft click that used to mean he was home safe from school. Now it meant something else entirely. Gravel crunched under his tires as he backed out of the driveway too fast, the way he'd done since he was 17. I stood in the living room Peter built, Peter's hands on every board, every nail, and listened to the silence press in. Then I walked to his study. The room still smelled like him. Old books and wood polish and the faint ghost of his aftershave that clung to the curtains. I opened the bottom drawer of his desk, the one that always stuck a little, and found what I knew would be there. A small digital voice recorder, the kind Peter used for work notes. I clicked it on. Peter's voice filled the room, weak, thin, but unmistakably his, and unmistakably angry. What I heard next made my hands go cold. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Clean. Official. The kind that turns your kitchen table into a courtroom before you've finished your coffee. I was still in my robe, morning light coming through the lace curtains Peter's mother had made us as a wedding gift. Steam rose from my cup. The birds were loud in the maple tree outside, same as every morning. Then I saw the return address. Kellerman and Associates, attorneys at law, Charlotte, NC. My hands were steady when I opened it. Old habit from the archives. Handle documents with care, even the ones that want to hurt you. Petition for emergency conservatorship. The words sat there in bold print, formal and cold as a death certificate. I read it once, then again, slower. Petitioner Ian Caldwell, son of respondent Cora Caldwell, respectfully requests this court grant emergency conservatorship due to respondent's rapid cognitive decline and demonstrated inability to manage financial affairs or personal welfare. Rapid cognitive decline. I'd worked 43 years organizing records that kept entire county departments running. I'd cataloged thousands of documents, cross-referenced historical files, trained 2 generations of junior archivists. I'd retired with commendations and a memory people used to call scary sharp. But Ian had built a different story. The petition listed evidence, forgotten appointments, the ones I'd rescheduled and he'd ignored, erratic spending, my normal grocery bills and the new roof the house actually needed, confusion. Dropping my keys once in the Kroger parking lot apparently made me incompetent. Each lie was carefully crafted, each half-truth positioned just right. There was a psychological evaluation attached, signed by someone named Dr. Gerald Bishop, dated 3 weeks ago. Patient exhibits marked memory deficits, spatial disorientation, and poor judgment regarding financial decisions. Patient is a danger to herself and vulnerable to exploitation. I'd never met Dr. Gerald Bishop, never spoken to him, never sat for any evaluation, but there it was, official letterhead and a signature and everything. My coffee had gone cold. I didn't remember setting it down. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. Fulton County Superior Court. Ian had already filed, already set the machinery in motion, already paid lawyers and doctors to rewrite my life into something unrecognizable. The petition requested immediate temporary conservatorship, pending full hearing, due to urgent concerns about respondents' welfare and estate preservation. Estate preservation. He wanted the house, and he wanted it fast. I read the whole thing twice more, archivist training kicking in. Note the dates, check the signatures, cross-reference the claims. Everything was wrong, but it was all dressed up in legal language that made it look right. I stood up, legs shaky but functional, and walked to Peter's study. The recorder sat where I'd left it on the desk, next to the framed photo of us at Lake Lanier in 1983. Peter was laughing in that picture, head thrown back, arms around me like he'd never let go. I picked up the recorder, pressed play, and listened to my dead husband argue with our son about this exact thing. When Peter's voice cut off mid-sentence, replaced by Ian's cold insistence and that smooth doctor voice coaching him through signatures, my hands went cold, but my head went clear. Peter's voice filled the study. Frail, weak, but unmistakably angry. "Ian, this is my house. Cora stays here." Then a second voice, smooth as silk. "Mr. Caldwell, let's just talk through the options. You want Cora protected, don't you?" I sat in Peter's chair, the recorder clutched in both hands, and listened to my husband's last fight. The timestamp said it was recorded 6 days before he died. I'd been at the grocery store, stocking up on the soft foods he could still manage. Ian had said he'd sit with his father, keep him company, maybe watch a game. He'd lied. "I don't need options," Peter's voice came through rough and tired. "I need you to leave my wife alone. Dad, you're not thinking clearly." Ian, calm and controlled. The same voice he'd used on me 3 days ago. "The medications, the pain. You're not yourself. That's why we need to get things in order now while there's still time." "There's nothing to get in order." Peter coughed, and I heard the wet rattle I'd heard too many times those last weeks. "Cora knows what to do. Everything's set. But the house, Dad, it's too much for her. The upkeep, the taxes, the neighborhood. She'll lose it to some scam or forget to pay the bills. You don't want that. Cora hasn't forgotten a bill in 47 years. She's forgetting other things. Ian's voice shifted, got softer, more careful. Last week she called me 3 times about the same appointment. She left the stove on. Mrs. Bowrace Gomez is worried. The same lies, the same script. He'd been testing it on his dying father. Then the third voice came in, the one that made my skin crawl. Mr. Caldwell, I'm Dr. Bishop. I specialize in helping families plan for these transitions. Very common, very manageable. All we need is your signature on a few documents that protect Cora's interests. What documents? Peter asked, voice wary. Just preliminary powers of attorney, health directives, property management authorization, standard planning. Ian brought them because he loves you both and wants to make sure Cora's taken care of. Silence on the recording. I could hear Peter breathing, each breath an effort. Let me see them, he finally said. Papers rustled. Then Peter's voice came back, stronger, angry in a way I rarely heard. This isn't about Cora's care. This transfers the house to Ian, says I'm incompetent, says Cora needs a conservator. Dad, no, it's not like that. Get out. Peter's voice cracked but held firm. Both of you, get out of my house. Mr. Caldwell, you're upset. Let's just... I said get out. More rustling, footsteps. Then Ian, voice tight and low. We'll talk about this later, Dad, when you're calmer. But this conversation isn't over, and when you're gone, I'll handle Mom's situation, for her own good. The recording ended. I sat in the silence, Peter's chair creaking under me, dust motes floating in afternoon light through the window. Then I opened my laptop with trembling fingers and typed, Dr. Gerald Bishop. 3 minutes later, I found the first complaint, Ohio Medical Board 2 years ago. Allegations of improper patient assessment and financial conflicts of interest. Case settled, no admission of wrongdoing. Then Tennessee. Same pattern, different family, same predatory approach. I kept searching, found a third case, this one a civil suit. A daughter in Knoxville claimed Dr. Bishop had pressured her dying mother into signing documents while medicated. Same script Ian was running. Same doctor who'd written my fake evaluation. I saved every page, every complaint, every court filing. Downloaded them, printed them, organized them in a folder, labeled with today's date. Then I picked up the phone. Alicia listened to the recording without speaking. When it ended, she closed her laptop and said 5 words. We're burning his world down. My niece had flown in from Philadelphia on 2 hours' notice. Took a personal day from the law firm where she worked as a paralegal, grabbed the first flight to Atlanta, and showed up at my door with a carry-on bag and fury in her eyes. We sat at the dining room table, the same one where I'd taught her to make pie crust when she was 12. Same table where we'd done homework together after her mother, my sister, died. Same table where Peter had carved the Thanksgiving turkey every year, while Alicia made him laugh with stories about her cases. Now it was covered in printed documents, legal filings, and my laptop open to Dr. Bishop's complaints. He came after Uncle Peter while he was dying, Alicia said, voice quiet but hard. Brought a fake doctor to pressure him, tried to steal the house before you could even grieve. She pulled the laptop closer, fingers flying across the keys. I watched her work, precise, methodical, angry in a way that reminded me of myself at her age. Dr. Gerald Bishop, she read aloud. 3 states, 4 complaints, 2 civil suits. He's a specialist, all right, in preying on grieving families. She clicked through pages, taking notes in a legal pad with quick, neat handwriting. He partners with people like Ian. They target estates in gentrifying areas, get the aging parent declared incompetent, transfer assets, liquidate fast. Can they actually do that, I asked, though I already knew the answer. If no one fights back, yes. She looked up at me, and I saw my sister in her eyes, the same stubborn determination. But you're fighting back, and you've got evidence they usually don't have. We need a lawyer who knows elder abuse cases. Someone who's fought conservatorships before. She typed something, scanned results, made a phone call. I listened to her talk. Professional, efficient, explaining the situation to someone named Andrew Peterson. She read him key points from the recording transcript she'd already typed up, mentioned Dr. Bishop's history, described the emergency petition. When she hung up, she was almost smiling. Andrew Peterson, legal aid attorney, specializes in elder financial abuse. 43 cases, mostly wins. He wants to meet tomorrow morning. She reached across the table and took my hand. Aunt Cora, we're going to destroy Ian in court, and that fake doctor, and anyone else who thought you were an easy target. Her phone rang 20 minutes later. She answered, listened, then looked at me with something like satisfaction. Peterson wants to know how fast we can get to his office. He listened to the recording clip I sent. Says he's never had the predator on tape before the hearing even starts. She stood up, already reaching for her car keys. He says we're not just defending. We're prosecuting. Andrew Peterson didn't look like a warrior. Wire-rimmed glasses, coffee-stained tie, office that smelled like old books and determination. But when he spoke, you believed him. His office was tucked in a building near downtown Atlanta that had seen better days. 3rd floor, no elevator, narrow hallway with worn carpet. The kind of place that ran on grant money and passion instead of corporate retainers. But his walls told a different story. Framed bar certifications, commendations from the Georgia Bar Association. Letters from clients thanked him for saving their homes, their lives, their dignity. Peterson stood when we entered, shook my hand with a grip that was firm but careful, like he understood I'd been handled roughly enough lately. Mrs. Caldwell, please sit. He gestured to chairs that didn't match but were comfortable. I've listened to the recording your niece sent, twice. Would you mind if I hear the full version? I handed him the recorder. He pressed play and took notes in shorthand, actual shorthand, the old kind I'd learned myself in 1976. He didn't interrupt the recording once, just listened, wrote, and twice removed his glasses to rub his eyes when something particularly bad came through. When it ended, he set down his pen and looked at me directly. Mrs. Caldwell, how's your memory? Sharp, I said. I can tell you every address I've lived at, every job I've held, my anniversary date, and what I had for breakfast last Tuesday. Medical conditions? High blood pressure? Controlled with medication. Annual checkups? All normal. Last cognitive screening was 2 years ago for a volunteer position at the county archives. Scored perfect. He made notes. Do you have documentation of that screening? I have documentation of everything. I pulled out the folder I'd prepared. Medical records for the last 10 years. Bank statements showing consistent, reasonable spending. My volunteer schedule showing I was at the archives the day Dr. Bishop supposedly evaluated me. Sign-in sheets. Security camera footage request pending. Peterson looked at the folder, then at me, and something like respect crossed his face. You were an archivist. 43 years. It shows. He opened the folder, scanning documents with the speed of someone who read files for a living. This is more organized than most lawyers' case files. You've already built half your defense. I've also found Dr. Bishop's history. Alicia slid her laptop across the desk. 3 states, multiple complaints, pattern of targeting families with valuable estates during end-of-life care. Peterson read through her research, and I watched his jaw tighten. Do you have contact information for any of these previous victims? Working on it, Alicia said. One woman in Tennessee responded to my Facebook message this morning. She's willing to talk. Peterson leaned back in his chair, fingers stepped under his chin. Mrs. Caldwell, I've handled 43 conservatorship cases. Fought elder financial abuse, predatory guardianships, estate theft. I've won most of them. But this is the first time I've had the predator's voice on tape before the hearing even starts. Clear evidence of conspiracy, fraud, exploitation of a dying man. He leaned forward and his eyes were hard. We're not just defending you. We're prosecuting your son and Dr. Bishop and anyone else involved in this scheme. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Peter's voice on that recording. Weak but fighting. Protecting me even while dying. Yes, I said, I'm prepared. Dr. Gerald Bishop had a pattern. Target grieving families, offer compassionate house calls, leave with signed documents and fat consulting fees. I found victim number 4. Alicia worked late into the night after we left Peterson's office, laptop glowing in my dining room, fingers flying across keys like she was racing against something. Maybe she was. Every minute Ian stayed free, another family somewhere could be his next target. Found another one, she said around midnight, voice tight. Ohio Medical Board complaint from 2022. Same accusations, coerced assessments during end-of-life care, financial conflicts of interest, settled quietly, no admission of guilt. She pulled up a second tab. Tennessee 2023 civil suit. Daughter claimed Bishop pressured her mother to sign power of attorney while on morphine. Case dismissed on a technicality, but the deposition transcripts are public record. I read over her shoulder. The daughter's testimony could have been my story word for word. Dying parent. Sudden specialist showing up unannounced. Urgent paperwork. Family member who stood to profit. Can we contact her? I asked. Alicia was already typing, tracking the woman down through social media. Found her on Facebook within 10 minutes. Anna Hartley, living in Knoxville, working as a dental hygienist. The message Alicia sent was simple. My aunt is facing a similar situation with Dr. Bishop. Would you be willing to talk? The response came back in under an hour. Yes, God, yes, I thought I was the only one. We called her the next morning. Anna answered on the second ring, voice shaking but determined. He came to my mother's house 3 times in her last month, she said. Always when I was at work. Always with my brother, who suddenly cared deeply about Mom's finances after ignoring her for years. They brought documents. Mom was so weak she could barely hold a pen. But Bishop kept saying it was routine planning, and she needed to protect her assets. Did she sign anything? Alicia asked. Legal pad ready. She tried. Mom got through 2 initials before her hand gave out and she fell asleep. Bishop told my brother they'd come back, but she died that night. Anna's voice cracked. The next week, my brother filed for emergency conservatorship of her estate, claiming she'd made him executor while of sound mind. Submitted a cognitive assessment signed by Bishop, dated the day before she died, the day she could barely hold a pen. What happened? I asked. I fought it. Hired a lawyer I couldn't afford. Found 2 neighbors who'd witnessed Bishop's visits and said Mom seemed confused and distressed. Judge dismissed my brother's petition, but by then the damage was done. Family destroyed. Mom's last weeks turned into a legal fight instead of goodbye. Would you testify? Alicia asked quietly. Long pause. Against Bishop? Against Bishop and my cousin Ian. They're working together. We have proof. Another pause. Then, send me everything. I'll testify. I'll do whatever it takes to stop them. 2 days later, Anna sent a package. Medical records, neighbor affidavits, email chains between her brother and Bishop discussing asset liquidation timelines. And one more thing, a photo. Found this in my brother's things after Mom's funeral, her note read. Took it before I knew what he was planning. Thought you'd want to see. The photo showed a conference room, banner reading, Southeast Real Estate Investment Summit, Nashville 2024. 2 men in the front row smiling for the camera, Dr. Gerald Bishop and Ian Caldwell. Name tags clearly visible. The medical report was a masterpiece of fiction. Patient exhibits marked memory deficits, spatial disorientation, and poor judgment. I'd never even met this doctor. Peterson spread the documents across his desk like he was dissecting evidence at a crime scene. Ian's petition included 3 pages of supposed medical documentation. Dr. Bishop's cognitive assessment dated April 18th, claiming I'd sat for a 2-hour evaluation at his clinic. April 18th, I said, pulling out my phone. I was at the county archives that day. Volunteered from 9 to 3, same as every Wednesday for the past 6 years. Peterson looked up. You have proof. I showed him the volunteer portal on my phone. Digital sign-in, Cora Caldwell, 9:02 a.m. Sign out, 2:47 p.m. Location tracked. Time stamped. The archives have security cameras, I added. I can request footage. Do it, Peterson said, already making notes. We'll need that. He turned back to the medical report, reading it with the kind of focus that made me glad he was on my side. Bishop lists his credentials here. MD, geriatric psychiatry specialist, licensed in Tennessee. Let me check something. He pulled up the Georgia Medical Licensing Database, typed in Bishop's name. He's not licensed here, Peterson said, voice flat. He's operating under a consulting exemption that's meant for second opinions and peer reviews, not primary assessments. Technically legal, but ethically questionable. And in this context, with a financial relationship to your son, it's fraud. There's a financial relationship? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Peterson nodded grimly. I subpoenaed Ian's bank records yesterday. They came through this morning. He slid a printed statement across the desk. Wire transfer, April 20th. $45,000 from Ian Caldwell to Bishop Consulting Services. Memo line, Patient Assessment Services. April 20th. 2 days after the supposed evaluation that never happened. 3 days after Peter's funeral. He paid Bishop $45,000 to write a fake report declaring me incompetent, I said, voice steady, even though my hands wanted to shake, before the flowers on Peter's grave had wilted. Peterson's jaw tightened. That's exactly what happened, and that's exactly what we're going to tell the judge. He pulled up county records on his computer. Your volunteer hours are documented through the county system, which means they're public record. I can pull 5 years of your schedule, show consistent attendance, show cognitive function required for archival work. He made more notes. We'll also get your employment records from your 43 years as an archivist, your annual performance reviews, any commendations, anything that demonstrates your cognitive abilities. I have all of that, I said, filed chronologically in my home office. For the first time since this started, Peterson smiled. Of course you do. He leaned back in his chair, fingers stepped together. Mrs. Caldwell, by the time we're done, the judge won't just dismiss this petition. She'll refer Ian and Dr. Bishop for investigation, wire fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy. This isn't just about saving your house anymore. It's about stopping them from doing this to anyone else. He made 3 more calls that afternoon. By evening, he had Ian's complete financial records, Dr. Bishop's consulting invoices going back 3 years, and a list of 8 other clients who'd paid similar amounts for assessment services. The pattern was unmistakable. The evidence was airtight. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. Not from fear, from fury held so tight it hummed. So I did what Peter always did. I made bread. 2 a.m., kitchen quiet, except for the old clock above the stove ticking steady. I measured flour by feel, the way Peter taught me 47 years ago in this same kitchen when we'd just moved in, and everything smelled like fresh paint and possibility. 3 cups flour, 2 teaspoons yeast, 1 tablespoon salt, warm water until the dough felt right under my hands. Kneading has a rhythm that clears the mind. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. My wedding ring caught the overhead light with each rotation. Peter's reading glasses sat on the table next to the case files Peterson had given us to review one final time. Alicia was asleep upstairs in the guest room, the room that used to be Ian's. I'd changed nothing in there. His high school football trophy still sat on the shelf. Photos of him grinning at birthday parties and graduations lined the walls. Evidence of a boy I'd raised who'd become a man I no longer recognized. The dough was smooth now, alive under my hands. I shaped it into a round, placed it in the bowl Peter had thrown in a pottery class 30 years ago. Covered it with the same flour sack towel we'd used since 1978. While it rose, I reviewed the timeline one more time. Peter's recording, Ian and Bishop pressuring a dying man, dated. Ian's threat to me, recorded on my phone, dated. The fake medical assessment dated April 18th. My volunteer records, proof I was at the archives on April 18th. The wire transfer, $45,000, April 20th. Anna Hartley's testimony. Same pattern, same predators. The photo, Ian and Bishop together at a real estate conference. Every piece connected, every date verified, every document cross-referenced. 47 years as an archivist had taught me one essential truth. Documentation doesn't lie. People do. Paper doesn't. I punched down the risen dough, shaped it into a loaf, slid it into the oven Peter had helped me choose when we remodeled the kitchen in 2003. Set the timer for 40 minutes. First light was touching the kitchen window when the bread came out. Golden. Perfect. The crust crackling as it cooled. The evidence was airtight. The bread was done. And Ian had no idea what was coming. I poured coffee, watched dawn break over the neighborhood Peter and I had chosen when nobody else wanted it. The house was quiet, solid, ours. In 6 hours, I'd walk into that courtroom and fight for every brick of it. Ian wore his grief like a tailored suit, expensive, perfectly fitted, and completely hollow. Your Honor, I'm here because I love my mother too much to watch her suffer. Fulton County Superior Court, 9 a.m. sharp. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, fluorescent lights too bright. Wooden benches too hard. Judge Karen Whitmore presided from an elevated bench, mid-50s, reading glasses perched on her nose, expression giving nothing away. Ian entered like he was walking into a business meeting where he already knew he'd win. Designer charcoal suit, silk tie and respectful navy blue, leather folder tucked under his arm. He glanced at me once, barely a look, then took his seat at the petitioner's table next to his attorney, a polished woman named Amanda Reeves, who probably charged $500 an hour. I sat at the respondent's table with Peterson, wearing the same navy dress I'd worn to Peter's funeral. Simple, dignified, real. Your Honor, Reeves began, standing with practiced confidence, this is a heartbreaking but necessary petition. Mr. Caldwell's mother, Cora, is 71 years old and exhibiting rapid cognitive decline following the recent death of her husband. Mr. Caldwell has observed concerning behaviors, memory lapses, confusion, inability to manage basic financial affairs. He seeks conservatorship not out of desire for control, but out of love and concern for her welfare. She made it sound noble, caring, inevitable. Mr. Caldwell will testify to specific incidents that demonstrate his mother's declining capacity. We've also submitted a comprehensive psychological evaluation conducted by Dr. Gerald Bishop, a respected geriatric psychiatry specialist, which documents Mrs. Caldwell's cognitive impairment and recommends immediate intervention. Reeves called Ian to the stand. He walked up slowly, hand on the Bible, voice steady as he swore to tell the truth. The performance was flawless. Mr. Caldwell, Reeves prompted gently, can you describe what you've observed in your mother's behavior over the past 6 months? Ian took a breath, like the words hurt to say. It started small. She'd call me twice about the same appointment, forget conversations we'd had, leave the stove on. His voice wavered just slightly, Oscar-worthy. Then it got worse. She stopped opening mail. Her bills were overdue. The house, my childhood home, was falling into disrepair because she couldn't manage the upkeep anymore. She's isolated herself, won't accept help, gets defensive when I try to talk to her about planning for the future. Did you attempt to discuss your concerns with her? Reeves asked. Multiple times. She refused to acknowledge there was any problem, said she was fine, that I was overreacting. That's when I knew I needed professional guidance. He gestured toward the folder on the table. Dr. Bishop conducted a thorough evaluation. His findings were clear. Mom needs help. She can't safely live alone or manage her affairs. Mr. Caldwell, why are you bringing this petition now? Ian looked directly at the judge, and I saw the boy I'd raised, the one who could talk his way out of anything, charm anyone, make you believe whatever story he needed you to believe. Because I love her. Because my father would want me to protect her, because waiting any longer puts her at risk. Several people in the gallery, strangers, probably attorneys waiting for other cases, nodded sympathetically. Reeves submitted Dr. Bishop's report as evidence. Submitted financial statements showing my erratic spending. Submitted statements from neighbors about my supposed confusion. The judge reviewed the documents, expression unchanged. Mr. Caldwell, you may step down. Judge Karen Whitmore looked toward our table. Mr. Peterson, does the respondent wish to present a defense? Peterson stood slowly, deliberately. He didn't say anything at first, just reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small Bluetooth speaker which he placed carefully on the table. The courtroom went very quiet. Your Honor, Peterson said, voice calm and clear, I have one exhibit. Peter's voice filled the courtroom first, weak, dying, but defiant. Ian, this is my house. Cora stays here. Then Ian's voice cold as January. Dad, you're not thinking clearly. Peterson pressed play on the speaker. And my dead husband spoke to a room full of strangers about the son who'd tried to steal from both of us. The courtroom went absolutely silent, not the polite quiet of people listening, the frozen quiet of people realizing something terrible was unfolding in real time. Judge Karen Whitmore leaned forward in her chair, removed her reading glasses. Ian's lawyer stopped writing mid-sentence, pen hovering over her legal pad. Ian himself went very still, face draining of color like someone had opened a valve. The recording played on. I don't need options. Peter's voice, rough with pain and morphine, but unmistakably clear. I need you to leave my wife alone. Dad, you're not yourself. The medications, the pain, you're confused. That's why we need to get things in order now while there's still time. There's nothing to get in order. Cora knows what to do. Everything's set. Then the third voice, smooth, practiced, predatory. Mr. Caldwell, I'm Dr. Bishop. I specialize in helping families plan for these transitions. Very common, very manageable. All we need is your signature on a few documents that protect Cora's interests. Someone in the gallery gasped. The judge's clerk looked up sharply. What documents? Peter asked, suspicious even through the fog of dying. Just preliminary powers of attorney, health directives, property management authorization, standard planning. Ian brought them because he loves you both and wants to make sure Cora's taken care of. Papers rustling on the recording. Then Peter's voice, stronger, angry. This isn't about Cora's care. This transfers the house to Ian, says I'm incompetent. Says Cora needs a conservator. Ian's voice on the recording, tight with frustration. Dad, no, it's not like that. Get out. Peter's voice cracking but firm. Both of you, get out of my house. Mr. Caldwell, you're upset. I said get out. Footsteps, a door closing. Then Ian's voice, low and cold. We'll talk about this later, Dad, when you're calmer. But this conversation isn't over, and when you're gone, I'll handle Mom's situation, for her own good. The recording continued. I heard Ian and Dr. Bishop talking in what they must have thought was private, in Peter's driveway, not realizing the recorder was still running in Peter's shirt pocket. The property's worth at least $2 million now, Ian said. Maybe more if we list it right. But we need her declared incompetent fast before she figures out what we're doing. I'll write the assessment tomorrow, Bishop replied. Standard cognitive decline language. You'll have it before the funeral. And you're sure it'll hold up? Done it 8 times in 3 states. Never been challenged successfully. Families are too grief-stricken to fight back, and by the time they realize what happened, the assets are liquidated. The recording ended. The silence that followed felt like pressure, like the air itself had thickened. Judge Karen Whitmore set down her glasses very carefully. Mr. Peterson, when was this recorded? 6 days before Peter Caldwell's death, Your Honor. Mrs. Caldwell discovered it on her late husband's voice recorder after receiving the conservatorship petition. The judge turned toward Ian, and her expression had shifted from neutral to something harder. Mr. Caldwell, is that your voice on this recording? Ian opened his mouth, closed it, looked at his lawyer. Reeves leaned close, whispered something urgent. Ian shook his head, staring at the speaker like it had personally betrayed him. "Mr. Caldwell, I asked you a question." He swallowed. "That's taken out of context. My father was heavily medicated. He wasn't thinking clearly. I was trying to help. Is that your voice?" The judge repeated, voice sharp. Long pause. "Yes." Judge Karen Whitmore made a note. Turned to Peterson. "Continue your presentation, counselor. I want to hear everything." Ian's lawyer whispered again, more frantically this time. Ian just sat there, mask finally cracked, staring at nothing. The truth doesn't shout. It just plays back exactly what you said. Peterson didn't raise his voice once. He didn't need to. Each question was a scalpel, and Ian was already bleeding. "Mr. Caldwell," Peterson began, standing at the podium with bank statements in hand. "You testified that you visited your mother frequently to monitor her declining cognitive abilities. Is that correct?" Ian nodded, straightened his tie. "Yes." "How frequently, specifically, in the 6 months before your father's death?" Several times. As often as I could." Peterson slid a document to the court clerk. "Your Honor, I'm submitting phone records showing Mr. Caldwell called his mother twice in those 6 months. Both calls lasted under 3 minutes. I'm also submitting gas station receipts placing him in Charlotte, to North Carolina, not Georgia, on the dates he claimed to have visited." Ian's lawyer started to object, but Peterson kept going. "Mr. Caldwell, you visited twice in 6 months before your father became ill. Then, after property values in Decatur rose 40%, you visited 8 times in 6 weeks. Would you agree with that timeline?" "I was concerned about my father's health." "Were you also concerned about the property valuation?" Peterson produced another document. "This is an email you sent to a real estate agent in March. You asked for a market analysis on a family property in Decatur that would be available soon. That email is dated 2 weeks before your father went into hospice care." The gallery stirred. Judge Karen Whitmore leaned forward. Ian's face flushed. "I was planning ahead." "That's responsible." "Planning for your father to die so you could sell his house?" "That's not—" "Let me ask you about Dr. Bishop." Peterson pulled up the bank statement on a screen. "You paid him $45,000 on April 20th. What was that payment for?" "Consulting services. Medical assessment of my mother." "Did you know Dr. Bishop personally before hiring him for this assessment?" Pause. "A colleague recommended him." "What colleague?" "I don't remember specifically." Peterson projected the conference photo. Ian and Bishop smiling, name tags visible. "This photo was taken at a real estate investment conference in Nashville last April. You're seated together in the front row. Does this refresh your memory about how you met Dr. Bishop?" Ian stared at the screen. We may have met there." "At a real estate investment conference, not through medical channels, not through a referral. You met a doctor at a conference about property investing and then hired him to declare your mother incompetent. Is that accurate?" "He's a qualified professional." "Is he licensed to practice medicine in Georgia?" Silence. "Mr. Caldwell, the question requires a yes or no answer." "I assumed he was." "You paid $45,000 without verifying his credentials?" Ian's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client is not responsible for verifying medical licenses." "Your client is responsible," Peterson cut in, "for hiring an unlicensed practitioner to write a fraudulent assessment of his mother, whom that practitioner never examined. Your Honor, I'd like to call a witness via video." Judge Karen Whitmore nodded. The screen switched to a woman in her 40s, sitting in what looked like a home office. "Please state your name for the record." "Anna Hartley. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee." Peterson walked her through it. Her mother's death. Dr. Bishop's visits. Her brother's attempt at conservatorship. The identical pattern. When she finished, she looked directly at the camera. Dr. Bishop and Ian Caldwell were working together to exploit vulnerable families for profit. My family, Cora's family. How many others? Judge Karen Whitmore made notes. Peterson turned back to Ian. Mr. Caldwell, did you attend the real estate investment conference in Nashville last April? Long pause. Ian looked at his lawyer. She shook her head slightly. Yes, he finally said. Peterson projected the photo one more time. Clear, damning, undeniable. No further questions, Your Honor. The judge's clerk handed up a document. The judge read it twice, then looked at Ian's attorney with something between pity and contempt. Ms. Reeves, Judge Karen Whitmore said, setting the paper down. Your expert witness, Dr. Bishop, is he present in the courtroom? Reeves stood quickly. No, Your Honor, Dr. Bishop was not subpoenaed to testify. We submitted his written assessment, which was conducted without a valid Georgia medical license. The judge tapped the document. Mr. Peterson has submitted records from the Georgia Composite Medical Board. Dr. Bishop is licensed in Tennessee. He is not authorized to practice medicine, conduct patient assessments, or provide clinical diagnoses in this state. Ian's face went pale. But, Your Honor, Reeves tried, Dr. Bishop was operating as a consultant, which falls under interstate. Ms. Reeves. The judge's voice was sharp. I've listened to the recording. Dr. Bishop explicitly identified himself as the treating physician. He provided a formal diagnosis. He recommended conservatorship based on clinical findings from an examination that, according to Mrs. Caldwell's alibi, never happened. That's not consulting. That's fraud. She turned to the bailiff. Contact the Georgia Medical Board. I want an investigation opened immediately. Also contact the Tennessee Licensing Board and the District Attorney's Office. The bailiff nodded, stepping out. Judge Karen Whitmore looked back at the defense table. Ms. Reeves, does your client wish to address the court regarding the $45,000 payment to an unlicensed practitioner for a fabricated medical report? Reeves leaned close to Ian, whispering urgently. He shook his head, whispered back. She looked frustrated, whispered again. Finally, she stood. Your Honor, we request a brief recess to confer with our client. 10 minutes, the judge said. The courtroom emptied into the hallway. I stayed seated, Peterson beside me, both of us silent. Through the courtroom doors, I could hear voices, Reeves and Ian arguing in tense whispers. I caught fragments. Withdraw now. Criminal charges. Cut your losses. Alicia sat behind us, hand on my shoulder. You've got him, Aunt Cora. He's done. 10 minutes later, everyone filed back in. Ian looked smaller somehow. Defeated in a way that would have made me sad if I hadn't heard Peter's voice on that recording. Judge Karen Whitmore resumed her seat. Ms. Reeves, Ian's lawyer stood, shoulders tight. Your Honor, after conferring with my client, we wish to withdraw the petition for conservatorship, the gallery murmured. Peterson didn't react at all, just kept taking notes. Judge Karen Whitmore looked at Ian. Mr. Caldwell, you understand that withdrawing this petition does not make the evidence presented here disappear. This court is still obligated to report potential criminal activity to the appropriate authorities. Ian nodded, voice barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. Then I accept your withdrawal. She paused. But I'm not finished yet. The courtroom went silent. The judge didn't need notes. She'd heard enough. This court finds the petition is not only without merit, it is malicious, calculated, and potentially criminal. Judge Karen Whitmore looked directly at Ian, and her expression was stone. Mr. Caldwell, you came into this courtroom claiming to love your mother. You testified under oath about her declining mental state, her confusion, her inability to manage basic affairs. You presented medical evidence from an unlicensed practitioner who never examined her. You paid $45,000 for a fabricated diagnosis. You attempted to seize control of your mother's home and assets while she was grieving the loss of her husband, your father. Ian sat motionless, staring at the table. This court has heard testimony that you pressured your dying father to sign documents transferring property, that you planned this exploitation before your father's death, that you conspired with Dr. Bishop, whom you met at a real estate investment conference, to create a scheme targeting vulnerable families for financial gain. The judge turned to me. Mrs. Caldwell, I want to apologize on behalf of this court system. Conservatorship laws exist to protect people like you from exploitation. Your son weaponized those protections against you. That this petition reached my courtroom is evidence that our system has vulnerabilities that bad actors can exploit. She looked back at Ian. However, Mrs. Caldwell came prepared. She documented everything. She kept records that exposed your lies at every turn. The irony, Mr. Caldwell, is that you claimed your mother was cognitively impaired while she was building an airtight legal defense that most attorneys would envy. Peterson handed the judge a document. She reviewed it, nodded. The petition for conservatorship is dismissed with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. Mr. Caldwell, you are ordered to pay Mrs. Caldwell's legal fees in full. Those fees currently total $18,000 and will increase if this matter requires further litigation. Reeves wrote quickly, not looking up. Furthermore, Judge Karen Whitmore continued, this court is referring the evidence presented today to the Fulton County District Attorney for investigation into potential charges of elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and exploitation of a vulnerable adult. The court is also forwarding all materials related to Dr. Sayski's, Gerald Bishop to the Georgia Medical Board, the Tennessee Medical Board, and the State Attorney General's office. She picked up her gavel but didn't strike it yet. Mrs. Caldwell, you have demonstrated exactly what our seniors should do when faced with exploitation. Document everything, seek help, and fight back. Your 47 years as an archivist served you well. I commend your diligence and your courage. Thank you, Your Honor, I said quietly. Judge Karen Whitmore looked at Ian one final time. Mr. Caldwell, you attempted to steal your mother's home, her dignity, and her autonomy. You failed. This court hopes the authorities pursue this matter to the fullest extent of the law. The gavel fell. The sound echoed in the quiet courtroom. Final, absolute, finished. Ian stood immediately, didn't look at anyone, and walked toward the exit. His lawyer gathered files with quick, embarrassed movements. People in the gallery watched him go, whispers following him out. I sat very still, feeling Peterson's hand briefly on my shoulder, Alicia squeezing my hand from behind. It was over. I'd won. Peter's house, our house, was still mine. And somewhere I hoped he knew. The house felt different now, not emptier, clearer, like someone had finally opened windows that had been painted shut for months. Alicia helped me carry my purse and the folder of documents, thinner now, less urgent, back inside. The kitchen table was exactly as I'd left it this morning. 2 coffee cups, the bread I'd baked cooling on a rack, Peter's reading glasses folded beside yesterday's crossword puzzle. Normal. Mine. Tea? I asked Alicia. Always, she said, and we fell into the old rhythm. I filled the kettle. She got the cups down from the cabinet, the ones with the yellow flowers Peter's mother had given us. We'd buried her 20 years ago in the same cemetery where Peter now rested. The phone rang while the water was boiling. I looked at the screen. Ian. It rang again, a third time. I let it ring. Voicemail picked up. I put the phone on speaker so we could both hear. Mom. Ian's voice strained and careful. I know you probably don't want to talk to me. I wanted to explain. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I thought the house was too much for you. I thought you'd be better off somewhere with full-time care. Dad's death affected me too, and maybe I didn't handle it well, but I was trying to help. If you'd just listen. I pressed delete before he finished. Alicia raised her eyebrows. You okay? He hasn't apologized once, I said. Not for lying, not for the fake doctor, not for trying to take the house, just excuses about what he thought was best for me, as if I'm not capable of deciding that myself. You want to block his number? I thought about it. Not yet. Let him call. Let him leave messages. If the district attorney needs evidence of continued manipulation, I'll have it recorded. Alicia smiled a little. Once an archivist. We took our tea outside to the back porch. Spring evening, cool but not cold. The garden Peter had planted was starting to wake up. Tulip bulbs showing green shoots, dogwood tree budding white. Mrs. Gomez from next door waved from her yard. "Cora, I heard you won." "News travels fast," I called back. "Your lawyer's office called mine. They wanted a statement about that petition claiming I was worried about you. I told them I never said any such thing. Ian made that up." "Thank you, Mrs. Gomez." She came closer to the fence, holding a casserole dish. "I made too much lasagna. Can I bring some over?" "I'd love that." She disappeared and returned with enough lasagna to feed us for 3 days. We sat on the porch together, eating and talking about gardens and grandchildren and everything except the courtroom. Later, after Mrs. Gomez left and Alicia went inside to return work emails, I stood alone in the fading light. The house behind me was solid. Brick and wood and 47 years of memories that no petition could erase. That night, I opened Peter's desk one final time. Tucked behind the recorder, exactly where I'd somehow known it would be, was an envelope. Sealed. Addressed to me in Peter's handwriting. Dated a week before he died. My hands shook as I opened it. What would you want your partner's final written words to say? Sometimes the last gift is knowing you were believed. Peter's letter wasn't long. It didn't need to be. "Cora, if you're reading this, something has happened and Ian has shown you who he's become. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this, but I know you've already won." I heard him on the phone 3 weeks ago, talking about property values and moving quickly while I was too weak to get out of bed. I heard him tell someone he'd have the house sold within 6 months of my death. Our house. The one we bought together when nobody wanted this neighborhood. The one we painted room by room. The one where we raised him. I recorded our conversation the day he brought that doctor here. I left the recorder running after they left. I heard them in the driveway planning how to declare you incompetent. You'll find the recorder in the bottom drawer. Use it. Document everything. Fight him with the same precision you used for 47 years, organizing other people's records. This time, organize the defense of your own life. Keep the house, Cora. Keep our life. You earned every inch of it. Every mortgage payment we scraped together, every repair we did ourselves, every memory we made in those rooms. Don't let him take it because he sees dollar signs where we saw home. I've set up a small fund. The details are with Patterson and Associates on Maple Street. I want you to start a scholarship for kids in the neighborhood who want to study library science or archival work. Call it the Peter and Cora Caldwell Archive Scholarship if you want, or just call it Documentation Matters. Make it about teaching young people that keeping records, preserving truth, and organizing information isn't boring. It's power. And Cora, get back on the archives board. They've asked you 3 times since you retired. Say yes. Your mind is sharp as ever. Don't let Ian's lies make you doubt that for even a second. I love you. I believe you. I'm so sorry I won't be there to watch you win. I read it twice, tears running down my face, not from sadness, but from being seen, from being believed, from being defended even after death. Alicia found me sitting at the kitchen table, letter in hand, crying quietly while morning light came through the lace curtains. "Aunt Cora?" I handed her the letter. She read it, wiped her own eyes, and made coffee without saying anything. Just stood there while the pot brewed, one hand on my shoulder. "He knew," I finally said. "He knew Ian would try this. He prepared for it. He trusted me to fight back. And you did." The coffee was strong and hot. We sat together in the morning light, Peter's letter on the table between us, and made plans. The scholarship fund, the archives board, Small ways to move forward without pretending the past year hadn't happened. Later, I walked to the front porch. The tulip bed Peter had planted showed green shoots, early, hopeful, persistent, despite late frost. Down the street, neighbors walked dogs and collected mail. Life continuing in the ordinary way, that means everything when someone's tried to take it from you. My house stood solid, its bricks warm in morning sun, every memory intact, every room still mine. I'd kept the house, I'd kept myself, and Peter had known I would.